Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Kenny, and this is Uncensored Season 1, and this episode is about Charlemagne the God. Now, I will admit, I have, a love-hate relationship with Charlemagne the God. I love the fact that, at times he can be very insightful and very intelligent and, really can say some things that'll get you thinking, so he's not at all bad, but then he also has this other side where he be putting out bullshit, or he'll put out junk, or he'll, push your buttons to see how far he can take you, so he definitely has, that mixed type of feel with a lot of people. But on the flip side of things, I do like the way he thinks. I may not like his antics or how the way he goes about things, because at the end of the day, he is who he is. But I do like the way he thinks about certain things, and in this episode of Uncensored, he reveals a lot. He talks about, because his original name is Leonard McCready, or Leonard McCready, because I definitely remember that first name when Monique was on the Breakfast Club. Well, Leonard, you see, Leonard, what you need to understand, Leonard. Monique was getting him together, and I'm Team Monique, though. I mean, me personally, like when because I actually did a review of the whole Monique situation. If you definitely check out my channel, I did a video on it. I support Monique 100%. But my whole thing was, I was saying is that, go off and do your own project, because at the end of the day, Monique deserves, to be making, 20 million, because she is a legend in comedy. She was the, when she was a part of the Queens of Comedy, she was pretty much the Bernie Mac of the Queens of Comedy. She was that comic that shut it down. So she's commendable. And then what my issue I had with Charlemagne the God was where he was saying that, this is, that it's like, I really feel that you're jumping on the bandwagon saying that this is about, women in the industry, but I just think it's self-serving. Well, Charlemagne, that I would have to disagree with you on, because for one, everybody is self-serving. It's just the question is, how self-serving are you? Are you so self-serving that it doesn't matter about anybody else and it's all about you? But then again, we all, have a purpose, and we all have a reason why we do things. But at the end of the day, she is making this move because she wants to help pave the way, for actresses coming after her. So her taking a stand is very important. And at this point, even though I was saying that, play the game, she doesn't have to play the game. She can change the rules, but just know that there's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way. And Monique, as a trooper, has decided to take that. And even that whole interview between the two of them, that's when I started to see, like, wow, two different perspectives. But definitely, I became more on Monique's side. But then again, I don't hate Charlemagne. Sometimes I question, like, okay, Charlemagne, why the hell are you doing this? Like, what is your intention? Like, why are you going at it like this? But throughout everything, he is, when you think about his story and you think about all that he's been through and how he's gotten to where he is, he really does have, somewhat of a real story of perseverance, and a real story of being your own man and finding your own way. And he talks about his moments of struggle and strife, growing up in South Carolina. His father was a drug dealer, and he ended up getting caught up in the life himself, started doing all this reckless shit, kept getting, he had got kicked out of so many different high schools. So he was pretty much like a reckless kid. But then he said that his father also instilled strict discipline with him. And also, he said coming from South Carolina, it's just dirt roads. Now, he said that the only thing that really kept him going, because one thing he said about himself is that he's a fan of the culture. So a lot of his opinions and a lot of things he shares is based within the culture and how he responds to certain things. And on one way or the other, you can disagree or agree with him. He is being honest. So that you gotta respect. I don't have to like it, but you gotta respect honesty. And sometimes honesty don't always come the way you want it to come. So he's kind of letting it be known that's what motivates him. And he definitely talks about reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. I read that as well, and he pretty much talks about it's like the greatest story of human evolution. That when he started, he was Malcolm Little, and he transcended into Malcolm X. And then he was saying that, that wasn't the end point for Malcolm X. I mean, sadly, his life was cut short, but he could have did far more if he would have been able to live longer and been able to even take his work even further, because Malcolm definitely had those ambitions. But then he said that was a key thing, is that you have to develop as a human. And even me as a black entrepreneur, personal development is one of the key rules or one of the key principles in developing a business or developing success. You have to develop as a person in order to be successful. And me being an entrepreneur, I'm a senior associate with Legal Shield and ID Shield, so definitely check out my link, and actually check out my website that's in the description box. If you have any questions or if you see some things that pique your interest, definitely reach out to me on my social platforms. I'm definitely all ears. But that part really spoke to me too, of having that entrepreneurial mindset that you have to develop as a human being, and that development never ends. And I thought that was interesting. And then he also talked about, being molested by his cousin's ex-wife as a child, and, but then he also said he talked about he had mentioned when Tyler Perry, talked about being molested, and he was crying, and he was saying that it's funny, he's crying, but I actually liked it, which definitely kind of rings an alarm for me. So definitely, he kind of, didn't actually blatantly admit it, but definitely I kind of saw that, he's, definitely battling some sexual issues. Not saying that he's gay or anything like that, but, usually a person who likes rape, they tend to be overly promiscuous. And he definitely did say that he does have a healthy sex life, according to what he's saying. So it is what it is. But definitely he talks about, being caught up in, in the bad side of life. He started, hanging out with all the druggies and stuff and the dealers. So he started dealing and started getting involved and kept getting locked up. He got kicked out of high schools, and, and if anything, his father was a drug dealer as well. So, he pretty much saw that's what it was around him, because you're kind of living in dirt roads. And it's not like there's a lot of economic opportunity. I mean, so a lot of them get kind of caught up on the fast track side of life. But then when he actually talks about getting arrested and all of that, and even talks about that one time he was actually in the cell with his own dad. Both him and his father got arrested. And if anything, he really starts talking about this whole drug game and thing. He said that, look, there is no such thing as a successful drug dealer, because a drug dealer is going to end up in one or two places, either jail or dead. So, at the end of the day, it's not, something you get into to have a longevity in, and because at the end of the day, you're going to end up in jail or dead. There's no there's no longevity and there's no success in being a drug dealer. So apply it to something positive versus going into that direction. So that I actually agree with him on. But then he said when he was a drug dealer, he would kind of like give like, because he said that he used to smoke a lot of weed, so they would kind of come up with like, ganja names and stuff for each other. So when he was out in the street or whatever, some people knew him because, they knew his father. But then some people who didn't know him, he said he would have a hoodie and he used to tell people his name was Charles. But then he had came across the name Charlemagne, where Charlemagne pretty much means Charles the Great. So that's where he pretty much said, wow, I'm going to start calling myself Charlemagne. And then he added the God to it because he says that, his father was definitely had, a black superiority mindset. The black man is God, So that's where the God concept came from. So pretty much together his name is, Charles the Great God. But then he was like, hey, I was young, what can I say? But it stuck, and that's become his mantra, even to this day. So then he also says that, he talks about the song Paid in Full by Rakim, thinking of a master plan. And then he says that bass line was just one of those, revolutionary songs, about being paid in full. Because being paid in full is about, claiming your own, it's about you claiming your own destiny and making your own money and building your own institution, which is something that even as a black man I'm trying to do myself. So definitely I related to that. And he talks about, how he got into the radio industry, where he started as with an internship. He worked really hard and ended up getting a part-time, gig on the radio. And definitely I would kind of say that Charlamagne on the radio, pretty much, I would have to say he's like the Black Howard. He's kind of like the Black Howard Stern. He's known to be very outlandish. He's known to say things that will definitely rub you the wrong way. And he just kind of has that flair like, I'm going to poke you and see what you do. And so he likes to poke. And you got people who are like that, and people normally can't stand people like that because they're always poking and always trying to see, if I do this, what you gonna do? And he actually talks about, how he had a part-time job at 93 Jams, but then he left that to go work full-time at 98.9, which was a newer radio station. And he says, oh yeah, people told me, oh, you crazy, you this and you that. But he said that, those people who said that are still working at that same job where I am now. And he says that sometimes you have to not be afraid to get out of the boat and walk on water. So I'm saying, like, be like Jesus. So I thought that was pretty interesting that he brought that up. Because that's a true analogy that, that's what that whole walking on water is all about. It's about having faith and walking by faith and not by sight. So I thought that, wow, that's very deep. Because I said, I get some very deep intellectual stuff from Charlamagne, but then the other side of him, I really don't pay attention to. Because, I don't have time for bullshit. So I really don't like putting my ear to that. But, definitely, he definitely addresses the fact that, yeah, he used to be very misogynistic and how he used to, be very out of the way with women, saying that he wanted to suck a fart out of her butt and all of that shit. And he pretty much says that, like, for a year he stopped doing that because he was saying that, a lot of us were raised in a rape culture where we don't respect women, where we do have a misogynist idea of women. And he said that he's actually happy that the Me Too movement is happening because it's going to start checking men to come correct, and that they're going to have to do things the right way. Excuse me. Because he was saying that, this whole sexual misconduct has been going on for years, And people like me growing up in a rape culture, you think that this talking down to women and this misogynistic approach to women is okay because you've always seen it happen around you. And he's saying that, he even admits that he's going through counseling, to learn how to approach women better. And then he also talks about how he first ran into Wendy when, he was working on a radio station in Columbia, South Carolina, and he came in there trying to, because he was selling mixtapes and stuff, so he was hustling. He gave the tape to Wendy. Whitney was like, "Get the fuck out of my office." And I'm like, that sounds like Wendy. And then she says, I can't do that right now. Take that to my husband. And, after a while, he ended up getting a gig with her. He ended up, becoming like her co-host because she was trying to, well, actually, that's not where it happened at first. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. Basty's calling, but I'll call him back. Oh yeah, and shout out to my best friend, Kenneth Toots of the K2 Spot. Definitely check out his channel. He does a lot of great music reviews. So he pretty much says that, his ambition was to become one of the biggest radio personalities. And he pretty much talks about when he met, Wendy's husband, he had this tape that said, "Hate is necessary." And he's saying, and of course that kind of alarmed him. What the hell do you mean, hate is necessary? He was saying that, nah, it's just that when you disagree with something or you don't want to go to when you don't agree with the status quo, you're considered a hater. So obviously, hate is necessary, because, you're not going to always go along to get along. So I thought that was pretty deep. And then he talks about in New York, he ran into Wendy. She was drunk, and she tells him to come to her show. And she ends up going, and he pretty much says, "I know you drunk, but I'm going to hold you to your word. So if you tell me I can come to your show, I'm coming." So he does come. He also goes through Whitney's husband and everything, and come to find out, they were actually looking for a co-host, and that's where he came in, as being the perfect co-host. And you can pretty much say that, yeah, Charlemagne's style and the way he delivers, you definitely can tell he learned a lot from Wendy Williams. And, and the thing is, they were bringing somebody in because, at this time, she was beginning to transition to television, so they wanted to soften up her platform so she can make that transition into a better platform, And he pretty much said that he wasn't even getting paid, but he had lived with them for a while, so that was a good opportunity, for him to get himself out there. It was a step up, and then he said that in 2008 he was fired, but then he said that, I just saw it as an opportunity to move on to better things. He ended up getting a position at 100.3 in Philadelphia, and he did this interview with Benny Siegel, and at the time Benny Siegel was beefing with Jay-Z, and that interview definitely got him a lot of that interview definitely got a lot of buzz and a lot of listeners. But he ended up losing his job after that. And he said that him and his wife at the time, he had his car packed because he was about to move. He was about to get a house and everything. Things were picking up for him, and just like that, life turns upside down and you lose your job. So he ended up saying that they ended up, staying with, his wife's mother, and then ended up going back to South Carolina, where he was, unemployed for about a year. He said that, his sister used to mess with him, and she was saying that, well, that's why you went to New York and thought you was all that, but now you back here living in mama's house. And And he pretty much told her, like, yeah, I'm living in mama house now, but, you know, so eventually I'm gonna, you know, move on and get up out of here, but you never will. So kind of, like shut her down, like, yeah, I may be back here now, but that's not where I'm gonna stay. You know, I'm in transition. And he said he was unemployed for a year until he got to Breakfast Club, you know, with Angela Yee and DJ Envy. You know, they were also commentating on the episode as well. And they said when they first started, you know, they weren't getting a lot of views. They really weren't getting a lot of numbers. And, you know, they were actually in fear that they were going to lose their slot, because they thought that they was gonna like push them out the door so they can bring in this country music station. So they were like somewhat on pins and needles, because if the Breakfast Club wasn't successful, it was just gonna fall flat between them. So they said that they would see the corporate heads come in, they would never speak to them, so they were always on pins and needles. And then, you know, if anything, you know, one of the guys who works behind the scenes, he was saying that, well, they never really had an intention of firing them, because they know it takes a while to build an audience. And then Charlemagne says that, look, what really helped build the Breakfast Club was the internet. You know, all three of us were interacting the internet. We were using Twitter, we were using Facebook, we were using all of these social platforms to promote what we were doing on the show, and that's what helped to build our audience. And that's what's made the Breakfast Club to what it is today. I mean, to the point now that they pretty much are now heard throughout all of New York. So their platform is really huge now. And, you know, he definitely talks about some of his groundbreaking, you know, interviews, like the one he did with Ray J. You know, also, you know, his interview with Hillary Clinton. And then also that, you know, that whole interview with, you know, Baby, where he pretty much talks about put some respect on my name. Respect. You know, because, you know, it was around the time Prince died, and he was kind of dissing Baby, like, you know, man, fuck Baby, who cares? You know, blah, blah. So when Baby came, Baby let it be known he didn't like Charlemagne, and he let it be known he was pissed off. And he would, like, literally snap and beat some ass. Like, he had a lot of aggression, but Charlemagne, even though he knew he was pissed, he knew how to deal with it. You know, because Charlemagne definitely has mastered, you know, that thing, like, you know, where he can look and he can kind of, you know, look in the eye of the enemy and can still speak his piece. But let's just say there was one time he tried that, and his ass we ended up seeing him on camera running from, you know, these goons trying to beat his ass. So therefore, you win with it, but you can also lose with it. But yeah, so he definitely talks about some of his controversial stuff, and then he even admits about his sexual misconduct, but he says that, look, I've changed. I'm not that same person. You know, but hey, when you put it out there, that's the game of social media. Once you put something out there, and if it sticks, it sticks. Because once you put it out there, it's out there, and you can't take it back. So some people are only going to see that negative side, and they're not going to see the intellectual side, because that's the thing that I dig about Charlemagne, is the intellectual side, not the bullshit. Not that I dismiss the bullshit, because the bullshit's unacceptable in my opinion, but at the end of the day, he's human, and I definitely think, you know, him meeting with Monique definitely, I think, did a number on him, because Monique definitely schooled his ass. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Monique went in there as, you know, as like, you know, that auntie that was there to, you know, get your ass in line, and she definitely did that. So he pretty much says that, you know, he's not the same person, and that he's trying to work on being a better him and everything, and pretty much one thing that he did say in this episode was that, you know, putting medicine in the candy. You know, Yeah, you can talk about all the bullshit, but put some smart shit into that. You know, put some medicine in there that's gonna heal people. Because he was saying that, look at it, we got racism going on in this country. We got we got pretty much a bigoted president, you know, Donald Trump. And he was saying that, look, this is not a time to turn down your black, turn up your black. If they can go out with tiki torches, you know, talking about, you know, white power, we need to turn up our power and turn up, you know, our sense of privilege and our sense of superiority. So I thought that, yeah, that's real. You know, at the end of the day, with, you know, things like, you know, the introduction of Black Panther and, you know, all of these different, you know, developments going on within the black community, I mean, it's time that we as a people, you know, begin to have a more higher sense of self and a more higher sense of our capabilities as well as possibilities. So that's what I have. So if I missed anything, put it down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. But subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you get notifications every time I drop a video. Also, follow me on all of my social platforms. I have them all listed in the description box. And also check out my business website. And again, if you have any questions or you want more information, feel free to hit me up on any of my social platforms. I'll be more than happy to talk to you. Also, like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And I'll be back with the next episode of Uncensored. So until then, everybody, take care.